All right, welcome back to the Exempt List. Today, we are talking about everyone's favorite day of the offseason calendar, maybe except the NFL draft. The first day of legal tampering. There was a whole bunch of news, a lot of big boys getting the bag. And to talk about it, I have Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus, and we will be right back with the Jam Pack Show. Welcome to the Exempt List, part of the Zero Blitz podcast family. I'm your host, Charles McDonald. Legal tampering, day one in the books. We are gearing up for a big and busy day two. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more contracts coming today. Maybe a Derrick Henry contract, maybe a Calvin Ridley contract. Hopefully, this doesn't happen right after we finish recording the show. But I have with me my friend Trevor Sikkema, who works for Pro Football Focus. Lots of draft stuff, as we were just talking about before we hit record. Trevor, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing good, dude. So good to be with you. So good to chop it up. I'm honored that I'm here doing the free agency show because there's a lot, man. I was kind of worried because DeAndre Swift signed like the second that it opened, and then there were like 2 hours of absolutely nothing. So I was like, all right, cool. We got a running back and nothing. So I was a little nervous, but then it started to kick up a little bit. So now we got a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, I was mainly just sitting around, just twiddling my thumbs, waiting for the Kirk Cousins contract to be announced. Based on my timeline, which is a good chunk Falcons fans, people were not happy about that. In a way that was a little surprising to me. But we'll talk about that later in the show. I was at an NFL diversity panel last night that was run by Troy Vincent and some other people in the league office, and I woke up to a bunch of things that I had missed. Like, this morning, I had no idea that Robert Hunt got paid $100 million until I had woken up this morning, which was kind of a shocking contract to see, I think. He was one of three interior offensive linemen to get paid. Landon Dickerson got a 4-year, $84 million extension from the Eagles. Robert Hunt went from Miami to Carolina on a 5-year, $100 million deal. And I got to say, to move from Miami to Carolina, it will probably take about $100 million for any player in the NFL right now. Because
hey, man, I moved from Florida to North Carolina, so unfortunately, though, I didn't get $100 million to do it. I wish I did, but no, it was the Hunt contract was crazy. I think I kind of have two takeaways when I saw that one. One, Tepper's fed the hell up. Like he is going to leave no dollar unspent, if you will, to make that team better. I think when Tepper took the job as the owner, like I feel like a lot of owners, they'll step in and yeah, they want to change things. They want to make things their way, but they go, oh yeah, we got patience. We're going to do this thing the right way. We're going to build it the way that it needs to. And he's had a couple of swings and misses. And I think now he's just absolutely fed up. So he's obviously very pedal to the metal here. They signed Damian Lewis as well, to who also got a really big contract for him. So they have one of the most expensive offensive lines in the league. But I'm actually pretty shocked that interior offensive linemen are getting the deals that they're getting, because Jonah Jackson got a deal, Kevin Dotson got a deal. And not that these guys weren't going to get signed, but this is a really deep and solid interior offensive line class. So I wondered if that was going to deter teams from going after some of these like more notable interior offensive linemen. But I guess the idea that, hey, let's go get proven trench commodities, I guess that mattered more than the draft class being pretty strong. But I was pretty shocked to see a lot of these numbers for these interior offensive linemen.
I think one of my big takeaways from yesterday is this cap spike maybe had teams feeling a little froggier than usual to spend some money. Because as people have said, it's been an unprecedented jump in terms of like the amount of money that teams have available to them. I think about $30 million from last year in terms of what the salary cap was raised to about $255 million. So, I think you have to like readjust your brain every year to what these contracts are looking like. And I think maybe we're a little behind the eight ball there, but I feel like with the Robert Hunt deal, I've joked about it on this show before and with my friends before, but like, dude, David Tepper, after last season, you need to throw out some serious cash to get people to come play for that team right now.
Yes.
Like they really don't have anything going for them. And if you look at their defensive depth chart right now, they lost Brian Burns or, traded him to the Giants. Yetur Gross-Matos landed with a new team. It's looking thin up front. So, like, this is a multi-year rebuild. And that's a big jump for someone like Robert Hunt, who's going to play from a team that maybe could win the Super Bowl if things line up for them in a straight shot with Miami, just based on the offensive firepower that they have, to a team that would be, that didn't really compete that much in the NFC South last year, which was the worst division in football. So I'm interested to see how that one works out for them. But that's one of those deals where I was like, man, congrats to Robert.
Yeah.
$20 million a year?
No,
congratulations.
Truly, I'm looking at a lot of these guys. And again, like a ton of different deals. Like even another Miami dude, like the Christian Wilkins deal going over to the Raiders. It's like Christian Wilkins, really good football player, but he now has the second biggest interior defensive line contract total behind only Chris Jones, who just signed his new deal. And when it comes to the total guarantees, he only trails Aaron Donald in total guarantees. So like this is a massive interior defensive line contract. And again, Christian Wilkins, really good player, but he's not like a Chris Jones and Aaron Donald. He's not one of these sack masters on the inside. He's coming off a really good year. And if you believe this is kind of a slingshot for him, sure, I get it. But man, like he was another one where I think Miami liked both of these players, would have liked to bring both of them back, but they're not going to bring Hunt back for over $100 million. And they're not going to bring Christian Wilkins back for over $100 million. So it's kind of like, man, they just ran into the buzzsaw of teams and their desperation. So it was, I think you made a really good point. We don't emphasize when we see these contract numbers, I don't think we emphasize enough just how much the cap went up this year, but also even beyond that, the slingshot from last year to this year, and then cap guys build in future cap increases as well. So like perhaps a year down the road, 2 years down the road, like these deals don't even look that massive, because if the cap was able to jump up such a big amount this year, it's probably going to jump up. I don't want to say similar because this year was crazy, but another big chunk next year, another big chunk the year after that. And so I think they probably build all that stuff in as well.
Yeah, I think it's funny that even with the jump, there's still some teams that have to, they got like a day to get underneath the salary cap. Dolphins,
yeah.
I think the Dolphins just got there yesterday with a massive restructure on Jalen Ramsey's contract that freed up about $20 million in cap space for them this year. But they only have, according to overcap.com, they only have $2.1 million, which is like, man, how did you bungle this bad? Where you're like you're a good team, but you're not so good that you should be right on the fringes of your cap space. I think it'll be interesting just to see how teams manage that down the road, because I would be a little concerned if you couldn't figure this out in year one on how to get a little, cash available to you to spend. Then how do you manage this in future years? Unless we're just going to get like $30 million spikes in cap space every single year, which doesn't seem all that likely based on what we know about NFL owners. It's a little bit interesting to me that, even the Chargers, like they're $25 million over the salary cap right now. It's like, how is that possible?
Dude, they were a crazy team when I was looking at them and how they were going to rebuild, because obviously they were bad this past year. It's like, oh, okay, let's look at how much money they have to spend in free agency. Zero, actually. They got to do the work to actually get to the floor. And so when I projected them for next year, it's like, are they going to keep Joey Bosa? Like, are they going to keep Mike Williams? Like, what are they going to do with some of these other major pieces that they have on the team? I was talking with people and it's like, all right, sure, they'd probably love to be able to keep bring Khalil Mack back, but does Khalil even want to sign there anymore? Twilight of his career, he probably wants to go try to chase a ring. It's not going to be in San Diego, at least over the next 2 years. San Diego. Los Angeles. Okay, thank you. I feel like I one of those slip every now and then, just because it feels like that's where it should be. But it's
anyways, where they still are. Them being, come on. They have no fans. They have no fans in LA.
I mean, I've also heard that San Diego is a tough place to keep fans because there's so many other wonderful things to do there. Like if the team loses, the people in San Diego go, damn, okay, anyways, yeah, you guys want to go to the beach? What do you want to do today? So that's probably why they ended up losing the team. But yeah, they're in a tough spot too, just getting back to their salary cap.
This is way off track, but I was thinking, man, East Coast, like Chargers lost, game's over by 1 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going outside, man. Going outside, it's nothing new. If it's bad enough, I can be at the beach.
It's like so foreign. Like, all right, I'm just gonna go outside, I guess. You know, like
I'm going outside on the NFL Sunday. That is foreign.
I don't have to care anymore. Right. You know, it is. That's why I'm laughing because it totally is. It's like you just said, oh yeah, there's actually better things to do than sulk about the Chargers losing. So, hey, maybe that's why they lost it. Maybe, hey, you know what? That's why you guys lost a team. Be more sad. Be more inside. That's what you need. That's what you need to keep an NFL team around.
You need a little cloudy weather, like, you get in Philly or New York, so you can keep the same intensity because there's nowhere else to go.
Exactly.
Do you have any other takeaways from the interior offensive line getting it back? I think it'll be interesting to see like which teams decide to double up on the draft, right? Because this is a pretty good class. Even if you're a team like the Panthers, you're sitting there with pick 33 and pick 39 now. You just signed Robert Hunt. You just signed Damian Lewis. I mean, there's still room to improve. You could probably do better than Austin Corbett at center, and you could also stand to give yourself some insurance at left tackle. I think that this is kind of interesting because the teams that added or extended guys, the Panthers, the Eagles, the Titans, you still have the flexibility to kind of double up because, like you said before, this is such a strong class on the offensive line. And not even that, like there's guys like Graham Barton who could draft as a tackle and you kick inside. It gives you more flexibility that way. It's kind of cool because I think the defensive lines have gotten so damn good in the NFL, and defensive line prospects have basically become like new age versions of dinosaurs and pterodactyls and like that you need to find a way to block for your quarterback. And if you're going to have to pay for it, that's fine. But I do think we're kind of switching gears from the offensive line. We've got all these offensive guards getting these deals. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of seen the return of running backs getting some deals too. I think, on the first day, we had Saquon Barkley signed with Philly, 3 years, $37 million. DeAndre Swift signed with Chicago, 3 years, 24. Tony Pollard signed Tennessee, also for 3 years, 24. And then Josh Jacobs signed a 4 years, $48 million deal for the Packers. He's going to replace Aaron Jones. But Josh Jacobs' deal, that was a little funny money going on involved in that one. Like if you actually,
I was going to say, have we seen the guarantee for that yet? Because there was an initial report, but then
it was around like $14 million guaranteed, and it's like all in year one. So
okay, so yeah, then that's like you said, like that's just completely funny money, which is actually ironic because I read yesterday as kind of all this is coming out. So Josh Jacobs is 26 years old, just signed a 4-year, $48 million deal with, I don't know, let's say somewhere between 12 to 14 million guaranteed. When the Packers signed Aaron Jones, he was 26 years old. They signed him to a 4-year, $48 million deal for $13 million guaranteed. So it was like the exact same deal. They just were like, all right, Aaron Jones is about to be 30, so we're going to sub him out. We're going to get a new 26-year-old running back in, and we're just going to, it was literally like the same contract. So if that is the guaranteed money, then Green Bay clearly has a type with how they do running backs. But no, I was pretty shocked at how quick the running back market went. Given what we went through last year, where we had some really talented guys that were going through negotiations and having, like getting the franchise tag with Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley and all, like, I wondered if this would be something that would drag on into free agency. Like if teams were going to say, we need to try to allocate our money elsewhere, but clearly it hasn't stopped teams from emphasizing running backs at the beginning of the free agent class. So I'm pretty shocked about that. I really am. But maybe that goes. So like we were talking about a little bit earlier, sometimes the way that the NFL handles free agency will tell you about what they think of the draft. I think running back kind of reflects that the draft is not super strong at the top with running back. Like, there's not a first round running back that we're going to get in this draft. I don't even know how many second rounders we're going to get in this draft, especially with how quickly the running backs went off the free agent market. So I think it's going to be a lot of like 3rd to 6th round running backs that are going to go off the board. I think the same thing with linebackers, right? It's not a good off-ball linebacker class in the draft. And you got like Kenneth Murray getting a bag from the linebackers. Who else got signed yesterday from linebackers? Oh, Louvu obviously got signed, but he's good. But like Jordan Brooks, Blake Cashman, I'm looking at these dudes, Jordan Hicks. So it's, to me, that speaks more to teams looking ahead to the draft and saying, we're not going to be able to find a suitable player to step in next year. So we've got to be able to find one in free agency at those 2 positions.
Yeah, the running back stuff and linebacker stuff to another degree was interesting. But I thought what was interesting about the running backs was these guys, they got years. Like Saquon Barkley, he got years on the deal that he couldn't get with the Giants. And quite honestly, Saquon, he got paid a lot more than I thought that he was going to get.
Me too.
On the free agent
especially the
market.
guarantees.
Right. With a possibility to make it, up to $45 million. But that's one of those things, like, if he actually hits the incentives to get to $45 million, no one's going to complain about that deal.
Right.
But, I also thought it was interesting because Saquon Barkley coming off a down year in production, Josh Jacobs coming off a down year in production, Tony Pollard coming off a down year in terms of production. DeAndre Swift had a pretty nice year until the Eagles as a whole team kind of hit a wall towards the end of the season. But, I like 3 of the 4 guys that I just mentioned are coming off some of like the lowest outputs in terms of like actual yardage and touchdowns in their career, which goes back to your point. Like, man, teams must be really down on this running back class because this time last year, these guys, they couldn't negotiate anything with the teams that they were on. Josh Jacobs got stuck in no man's land almost basically until the point the season started. Saquon Barkley took a deal that like people had to we're calling him a sellout pretty much for folding so fast against what running backs were trying to fight for. And now,
right.
And then, they go into the season, they don't even play all that well. I know that there are extenuating circumstances, especially for Saquon, because the Giants offensive line was cooked. And, you're dealing with the Tommy DeVito thing, which was like a cool meme. But as far as just, being an actual NFL running back and trying to get some things popping with that, pretty difficult, I would say.
In terms of helping an NFL run game, it wasn't all there. It really wasn't.
No. The Giants-Jets game last year, holy crap. I think I don't even know if Tommy DeVito hit like 40 yards passing in that game.
Jeez.
And Saquon was just getting absolutely pummeled. Like, there's a 2-minute drill where they were throwing screens and just getting blown up like at the line of scrimmage. There's reason why the production was down, but still, it's interesting that they got these deals after down seasons for them.
Do you think Dave Gettleman admits that was a mistake? The Saquon pick, or do you think that he doesn't? Like, do you think that he's like, no, that was the right pick all along. We failed him. They failed him. The process was sound.
Yeah, that's absolutely what he's saying. I covered Dave. All right. I know that's what he would say.
That's why I asked you, because that's why I asked you.
Okay.
I just wonder,
Dave is unrelenting in the ambiance of Dave Gettleman is the way that I would put that. He loves himself some Dave Gettleman.
Right,
and he'll never admit that
absolutely he's not relenting. Yeah. Like to your point, just a reflection of the deals and the running backs. When I look at these running back rankings, I think Jonathan Brooks from Texas is the best back in this class. When you look at what he was like on the field, he really did give you the total package in a lot of stuff. Now, he wasn't Bijan Robinson, who he was obviously filling in for, but he still had really good footwork. I thought the vision was good relative to how little that he has been used as a full-time back. He had the burst. He had the overall speed. I thought he had decent pass protection skills that could get better, soft hands in the receiving game. Like, I really did see a total package from Jonathan Brooks, but he tears his ACL in November. So that's something that you got to think about here. I wonder if teams just look at Jonathan Brooks potentially as that RB1 and they go, okay, well, almost like you talked about with double dipping with interior offensive line, are they going to say, let's see if we can get Jonathan Brooks at either the very end of the second round, third round, something like that, where we have a running back where all of their guaranteed money is basically in next year anyways. So we can sign them. Jonathan Brooks is probably somebody that we don't want to rush back anyways. Maybe it's a situation like that. And maybe they think that for a handful of backs in this class. Maybe they think the same about Blake Corum, who is probably the most pro ready. So I wonder if he's just going to happen to be the first one off the board.
I think he's going to go higher than a lot of people are expecting. Blake Corum.
What do you think? Because I think like mid-second round is where he's going to go. You think you go higher than that?
No. Like mid-second round. But like when you talk to people like on the internet, they're like, he's slow, and he's old, which I mean, I tend to agree with that evaluation. But like when you talk to NFL folks and you read people who know NFL folks, I think he's going to go a little bit higher.
I think there's a ton of love for the Michigan players in this class. Like, I think so many Michigan players are not only going to get drafted in the bulk of whatever it is, the top 100, but also when we get to day 3 and when you've got teams who are like, let's fill out the bottom of our roster and get some special teams guys. I think a ton of Michigan players are going to come off the board. So all that to say, I agree with you completely. I think they look at Blake Corum, go, he had the production as a sophomore. The year after that wasn't great, but he ended the season pretty strong. He played for Jim Harbaugh. He's a pro's pro. I feel like he's going to be RB1 off the board.
Yeah. I think even like the construction of some of these rooms would lend you to think that teams are going to be going for running backs in the draft, because like the Titans, for example, and I think the Packers too, but it started the Titans. Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, I don't really know, like, because to me, Tony Pollard already showed that he's not really a bell cow guy. Tajay Spears, I thought that was such a great dynamic between him and Derrick Henry last year, but now Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears together, it seems a little bit redundant. So maybe they're even a team that can go in the draft and find a power back, or someone who can carry some of those tough carries in the middle of the field. Or you go to the Packers. It seemed like the plan at first was to have Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones together. Last year they were trying to trade for Jonathan Taylor to pair with Aaron Jones, but then Aaron Jones said, "Nah, I can't really take another pay cut after taking a pay cut. So I'm going to bounce and go to the Vikings." But, even though they just paid Josh Jacobs, they're clearly a team that could draft a running back too. So,
right.
I think it'll be interesting just to see like how much commitment there is with these deals compared to what they can get in the draft at the same time, just out of how you want to put this team together.
And it probably makes them feel better about it, right? Where they go, okay, we like to have these running back by committees. We're going to draft one, but we're not going to feel the pressure to draft one with like our second round pick or something. Like, even if you take first round pick out of it, maybe they say to themselves, we're comfortable giving a running back in free agency a good chunk of change because we know we're not going to be that pressured to take a back. They'll probably like a bunch of them, right? Like they'll probably like Ray Davis and Marshawn Lloyd or Will Shipley or Audric Estime or like whatever. They'll probably like 4 or 5 of them. So I think with that being the case, that might have influenced them really wanting to give running backs more money in free agency, knowing that they're not going to have that pressure in the draft.
Speaking of running backs, just going to rewind real quick because we have had an update. This is not an update that you were looking for probably, but this is an update. Tad Prescott, Dak's brother, said in response to the Saquon Barkley deal, so if it wasn't clear already, it is now. The @Eagles have the best front office in the NFL. # how about them Cowboys? Agree or disagree?
I don't think that you're allowed to say those words in that string right there, my guy. Like,
no.
What?
You can't be Dak Prescott's brother and saying the Eagles have the best front office in the NFL.
What are you doing?
And also,
that's a tough look. Is he trying to plant the seed? Because Dak doesn't have an extension, right? Is he trying to plant the seed like Dak's going to Philly in a year?
I don't know. Hey, if the Cowboys are interested, the Falcons haven't newly signed Kirk Cousins, we could swap for Dak Prescott. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Dak Atlanta Falcons, it kind of rolls off the tongue.
Oh, that kind of does work.
God. Yeah.
It's better than Kirklanda. It's better.
Yeah.
It's better than Kirkland is.
Yeah. And the only thing I really say on the Eagles, and maybe this will get me ratioed into oblivion, but this would not be the first time I've gone to war with Philly fans. Let's wait and see what happens. Jason Kelsey's gone. Fletcher Cox is gone. I know they already hit up the Jalen Carter pick, the replacement, but that team's got quite a bit of holes. And I think the nucleus is getting pretty old. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think
we'll see what happens.
I do agree. Is the Eagles? I love the fit for Saquon going to Philly simply because, well, one, he's super talented and I want the best for him. And when you look at Philly, 3 of the last 3 years, they were top 5 in our run blocking grade in 2022. They were 2021, and then they were top 3 both in 2022 and 2023. So like this unit has been good, so not just good, I guess so good for the last 3 years. And it makes total sense when you compare that to what he had to work with the Giants. That just in and of itself makes sense. But I agree with you, losing Kelsey hurts. And I wonder how that really affects them. They've got Cam Jurgens. They signed Landon Dickerson. Like, I think they're going to be fine. I don't think this team's going to be bad or anything on the up front. But like you said, maybe not as dominant as they used to be. We'll see.
Yeah, it's like sports radio, gas bag stuff. But okay, Howie, you built 2 Super Bowl contenders. You won 1. Do it again. I don't know. Do it again. Do it again, Howie. Speaking of Super Bowl contenders, before we get into an ad break, the Chiefs are all in on trying to get this three-peat. We'll see where L'Jarius Sneed winds up. If he winds up somewhere, with each passing day, I kind of think he's just going to be back with the Chiefs next year.
Right.
And they'll figure out some way to kind of get everything underneath the cap and get healthy. But, dude, I was talking to our friend Justin Mosqueda about this yesterday, and he was having some quibbles with, oh man, like the Chris Jones contract, like it's a lot of money for a 30-year defensive tackle, 30-year-old defensive tackle, and then he immediately followed up by saying, "Well, I guess it doesn't matter. You have Mahomes, right?" And that's where I feel like the Chiefs are right now. I want to sit here, and I was thinking like, man, because that is a lot of money for a 30-year-old defensive tackle, and you're attaching like some pretty hefty years onto it. I think they can probably get out of it when maybe he's around 33 or 34 years old, depending on how comfortable you feel taking on a big dead cap hit. But this team also drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round. It didn't slow them down like one bit.
It didn't matter. It just didn't matter at all.
Didn't matter.
No, I agree. That's just like, that's where the Chiefs are. To me, the only thing that matters for Kansas City, genuinely, the only thing that matters for Kansas City is next season. That's it. That's why I agree with you too. Like, I actually think it's most likely that Sneed is back. They're just trying to three-peat. Because here's the thing, like, I have no sources here at all whatsoever, but I feel as though Travis Kelce is close to being done as well. But he wasn't going to retire the same year that his brother did. And he certainly wasn't going to retire when his team has a chance to go out and three-peat. So I think they're giving it one more run. He's going to give it one more run. And then if you take Travis Kelce out of that offense, the receiving options that they have are not great. It's like there's no real impact players. I like Rashee Rice, obviously, but I feel as though the yards after catch ability that he has and how you can kind of scheme a lot of those things up work because you have a guy like Kelce and you have some other players to work with as well. But as it stands right now, you're just trying to keep the offensive line, you're trying to keep those pass catchers, and you're trying to keep the best of your defensive guys all together to make a run for next year. So I agree with Justice. Like, it's a ton of money for a defensive tackle, but he's totally right. You have Mahomes. The window is always open, and you have a shot at a three-peat, which no one ever freaking has. Like, nobody ever gets this shot to do this. So pay him whatever he wants. You can't let him walk while you're trying to do this. So it kind of just is what it is.
We should start like dishing out organizational challenges to the Chiefs. Like, okay, you pick 32, trade up into the 20s for a punter, and then we'll see what happens for you next season. Okay, you have Patrick Mahomes. How about you go give Kadarius Toney $25 million a year, and let's just see if you can do it that way. Like, I don't know. They won the Super Bowl against a very good defense with an offense that like had one guy pretty much that was doing anything. Travis Kelce towards the end of that game. Pacheco got shut down. The other receivers didn't really do all that much, and they still won the game. So we need to start issuing challenges.
The whole playoffs. They were on the road the whole playoffs. Like, well, I agree with you. We're reaching like gimmick territory with them, where it's like, all right, we don't really care anymore that you're winning. Like, we've seen that too much. Actually, make it a challenge. Somehow turn it up beyond all Madden. Like, do something different.
They've reached a point where the only thing that matters is the playoffs. Because I remember last year when they lost to Denver and they scored 9 points on a defense that had given up 70 at one point in the season, and also a defense that made Justin Fields look like you would take him over Caleb Williams at one point in the season. I'm never going to care about any regular season result unless they don't make the playoffs somehow. And that's a pretty cool place to be as a Chiefs fan, I would say. I don't know what that's like at all. I don't know anything about that lifestyle. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah. All right. We'll be back with some coping about our quarterback situations after a quick word from our sponsors. All right. We're back. And the Falcons might be back as far as a team that has expectation to do something. What that something is, I haven't quite decided yet. I would place the expectation to making the playoffs on them now that they have a quarterback. They signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $185 million contract, $100 million guaranteed in the first, basically in the first 2 years. If you look at it on like Spot Tracker over the cap, it essentially functions as like a 2-year deal. And I was a little bit surprised, I gotta say, at how negative people were towards this deal. Because look, let's keep it real. I would love to get my hands on like Drake May if he fell. I'm not really convinced that he's fallen all that far. Too many teams need a quarterback. And I think if you're going to be a team that trades up this year, it's going to cost you a ton. Because like if you're the Commanders and I think we can assume Caleb goes number 1. You're sitting there number 2 with your choice of Drake or Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy if you're a statist. And you can kind of sit there. I'll try to get to know that laughing. but
you're keeping it together so well. You
I
really
know.
were.
I was so close. I was so close. But, right now, like they're walking into the draft with Marcus Mariota and Sam Howell as their quarterback options just on the roster. They just signed Marcus Mariota today to a backup contract. They're taking a quarterback. If you're running the Commanders, how much would it cost you for you to move off of the number 2 pick right now? Like everything, pretty much. Because we all know at the end of the day, teams have decided that these quarterbacks are so valuable, they're willing to trade 3 first-round picks to have the opportunity to draft like a 20-year-old. And you're a team that needs a quarterback. So how much would it cost you to move off number 2?
I think it's more likely that Washington trades up to number 1 than they trade back from number 2. I really do. Like, I think that Washington, I don't know this for sure, but this is just what I believe. I think they've already sent Chicago probably multiple iterations of a trade of like, we're going to make you say no to this, right? Like, we're going to make you say no to this. Now, it's not going to be egregious because you're only moving up 1 spot, but Caleb played high school ball right outside of DC, right? I mean, like new ownership, new coaches, new regime, like it's a new everything. There couldn't be a better storybook start for the new ownership in Washington than getting up to number 1 and getting Caleb Williams. But if you don't get him at number 1, I don't, every team has a price, obviously, but like, I don't even know if 3 first-round picks and a couple of day 2 picks can really force you to move off of 2. Because what are you going to do? You're just going to.
I'd rather have a quarterback.
Right. And that's the thing. If there were major doubts about Drake May specifically, okay, maybe you entertain that. Like if it was Caleb and then a big drop off, sure, I get it. But I watched Drake May and I'm a little confused why there's so much pushback on May not being the consensus guy at number 2 overall. And I don't say that to necessarily take anything away from Jaden Daniels, but when people talk about why May might not go number 2, it sounds really nitpicky. It really, and it's like, dude, there have been so many other quarterbacks that it feels like have been picked high for less talent than what this dude has showed over the last 2 years. So just to get back to answering your question, because I think so highly of him, even though it's not Caleb Williams, you still have the opportunity to start completely fresh and get a quarterback at number 2 that has a franchise caliber ceiling. So, I mean, the answer to your question is it would take 3 first-round picks, absolutely, this year, next year, the year after that. You're probably talking about another day 2 pick this year, a second-round pick the year after that, and then some sort of day 2 pick, a second or a third the year after that too. Like that's what it would cost for Washington to make it worth it for them to move off of number 2. But even then, just draft the quarterback that you think is going to be good. So that's what I would do.
Right. And that's why you have to sign Kirk Cousins if you're the Falcons.
that's why you got to do it. That's why you simply have to do it.
Because if you pick an 8, man, it's honestly not reasonable to give up all of that if you feel like you could make the playoffs this year. You know, so I think the Kirk thing makes a lot of sense. And we talked about the cap space earlier. Arif Hassan, he did the math, basically comparing like what these Kirk deals are, and he basically got the same deal as he did last time from the Vikings, except the cap's gone up. So it's $45 million, it's $100 million over the first 2 years, and you can get out after 2025 if things are going poorly, which they might. I mean, he did just tear his Achilles. Like this is not a perfect signing in any way, but you have no choice, I feel like, if you're Atlanta.
But I agree. They're taking the swing. And like when free agency opened, and I think it was Diana Rossini who tweeted out like, oh, like Kirk's already talking to Atlanta, essentially. I had quote tweeted it and I said, like, I have a hard time believing that Arthur Blank's going to get outbid for any quarterback that he wants this year, because the way that it went terribly with Matt Ryan, the way that they went after Deshaun Watson, it sounded like they kind of thought they had him, and then it was just ripped right from underneath them. And then subsequently what happened after that of like, okay, sure, we'll sign Mariota, and then we'll give Desmond Ridder a chance, and like they just haven't been competent and they've been disappointing since. Arthur Blank was not going to put up with it this year. So when you talk about what the price would have been to get up to number 2 overall, I'm sure the Falcons already reached out about that. I'm sure the Falcons already tried to give Washington their best offer, what they were comfortable with, before free agency started. And when the Commanders said no, then they went, okay, empty the bank for Kirk, because we're not doing this again. Like, we're not going into next year, or we're not going into the draft with Desmond Ridder and whoever falls. You know, like maybe the Patriots will trade back. Like maybe we could get to 5 and draft one of these guys, but it might be QB4. Atlanta was just never going to operate that way. So I agree with you. Like I get that he's older. I get that he's coming off an Achilles, but even a reasonable expectation of Kirk Cousins probably makes the playoffs for this team. So I think the rest of the group is there for that.
At some point, they just had to start looking like a real football team again. They haven't made the playoffs since the Eagles beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, it's creeping up in terms of the amount of years it's been since that happened. Yeah.
Damn, that's a long time.
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
But was it 2017?
2017. Yeah, the year after the Super Bowl was the last time we made the playoffs.
All right.
Dude, that Super Bowl was 8 seasons ago.
I feel like I'm in one of those TikTok memes where it's like, oh, I'm so excited for 2020. Happy New Year. And then it's just like all the lights go off and it's like, it's 2024 already. That's how that felt when you said that right there, that it was 8 years.
Because I don't remember. I need to go back and look and see what was happening on that day. But on December 7th, 2015, I should say, I just tweeted out future Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins. And that was okay. And that was a year before Matt Ryan won the MVP. So that was, I tweeted that 9 years ago, which means Matt won his MVP almost 8 years ago. Dude, what the fuck happens?
You gotta quote tweet it and just say never wrong, just early, baby. That's all it is. The tweet.
Well, I quote
never
tweeted
wrong,
it with like
just early.
I quote tweeted with the meme of Bobby Hill, with the huge brain and he's floating and stuff. Like
that. Yeah.
I'm the Oracle. We all know.
You can see it. You can see it.
Yeah. So let's switch gears. Stay in the division. Baker Mayfield going back to Tampa Bay. 3 years, $115 million, close to 2 years. I gotta say, I was a little surprised Baker couldn't pull more on a APY basis because,
really,
dude, if I'm Baker Mayfield, I'm just saying, if I'm Baker Mayfield, I'm printing out Daniel Jones' contract and I'm bringing it to the office. Like, start
so.
Here.
I guess in that sense, I agree with you. But just from somebody who has Tampa ties and people who cover that situation pretty closely, like, he did not want to leave Tampa. So the Bucs knew that. And so I think that helped in the negotiation. And I think that they were like, all right, let's get to a place where everybody's comfortable. Like, we'll leave ourselves room to be able to maybe make some other moves as we need to. But if Baker truly hit free agency, then you are right. He could have looked at that deal and I think gotten more elsewhere. But I genuinely don't think that he ever wanted to leave Tampa. He's kind of made that clear through like hints and things like that. So I think that's probably why the number isn't as good as it could have been elsewhere. But, the Bucs are in an interesting situation, right? They're coming off another division title. Got it by the skin of their teeth, barely beating the Panthers in the last game of the season, but they host a playoff game. They beat the Eagles. They're riding high. They lose Canales as offensive coordinator. They also lost a handful of other coaches as well. Now they trade away Carlton Davis. It's like, man, I don't think the Bucs are going to be bad, but to say that this was a playoff team without context doesn't really do their whole situation justice. So are
you saying there was something wrong with the 2023 NFC South?
Yes, it was horrendous. And the fact that the Panthers won 2 games while being in that division is nothing short of an abomination of what you should be as an NFL franchise. So
it took Desmond Ridder throwing an interception that ended his career for the Panthers to win their second game.
What a comedy show that whole division was. You had Arthur Smith basically just coaching to piss off the fantasy football community every single week. You had Derek Carr just like cannot get out of his way with the Saints. And then you have the Panthers showing everything that you should not be doing if you're an NFL franchise. And the Bucs were just like, all right, we're kind of stable. And they won the division just because they were simply that.
I guess at the end of the day, the Bucs and the Falcons, they made the moves they feel like they had to make. Is it sexy? No. I mean, Kirk Cousins being your quarterback is honestly pretty Falcons-y, I feel like, at the end of the day.
Man, I think it's fine. I think
it is fine. But that's fine.
I think Drake London's going to eat. I think Kyle Pitts is going to eat. I think Bijan's obviously going to be great. Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think the offense is going to be good. How do you feel about Raheem?
I don't know. I mean, people are excited about him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought Arthur was going to be good. So I thought Raheem did a really good job when he was the wide receivers coach here. Because he started in 2015. He was through 2019. And I thought they did a pretty good job of developing those players while he was the passing game coordinator and the wide receivers coach. So, that's when they drafted Calvin Ridley. That's when they had some other guys kind of, find their ways in those later years of like the Matt Ryan stuff. So I don't know. He wasn't the worst part of the last staff that blew the Super Bowl. So I can say that.
That's good. That's good. That's what you want. That's good. That's good.
But, I also think people who just cite his record are losing a lot of context on what happened in the first Tampa Bay run. I can tell you from experience that when that whole thing went down, because Gruden wouldn't stop asking the owners for money to basically be at the cap floor every single offseason because he wanted to sign veterans. He didn't want to play rookies. He always just wanted to sign veterans. So the Bucs were always like near the cap floor, and they basically told him like, John, you got to chill. Okay. Like we also own Man United. We're trying to like not be poor over here. And he just kept having these demands. And obviously when things were kind of going up and down with the record anyways,
they fire him. And the next guy that they brought in, the general manager, Mark Dominic, was basically told, like, you got to make it work with what we got. Like, we're shedding all the dead weight. We're going to have a very low cap hit team, and you got to figure it out. And he's like, okay, I can do that. And then they hired Raheem, and Raheem went from being a 29-year-old defensive backs head coach who was just trying to make it in the league to a genuinely, like, a scapegoat. Like, they hired him as a 30-year-old head coach, making that massive jump with a team that they were never going to invest in. They way overachieved that first year. He went to them and said, we will not be able to do that again with this roster. And they said, tough, do it again. And he got hung out to dry, man. Like, you cannot, any Falcons fans out there listening, you cannot cite his head coaching record with the Buccaneers as like a legitimate reflection of like who he is as a head coach. I think he's way better than that now. So
yeah,
just a little bit.
Yeah, and dude, people are also, and I will say, I don't think we need to get into it here, but like the Josh Freeman situation, it's not the cleanest, not great. But you know, at one point he was looking like a Pro Bowler. I think he did make the Pro Bowl actually one year when Raheem was there.
No way.
Then he was. That was, I think, one of Raheem's years. The year he went like 25-6, or maybe it wasn't Pro Bowl, but it was. They made the playoffs or something like that.
All right, he did not make the Pro Bowl, or at least it doesn't say that on Wikipedia, which is of course he did have a QBR of 69.5, which is very high that season, that 2010 season. So yeah, the 2010 season here. Yep. That was his best.
Yeah, and then things kind of fell apart for him a little bit. In certain ways.
It happens in Tampa, it happens in the NFC South.
Specifically, it happens in Tampa to a lot of people.
What do you think about Russ going to the Steelers?
Who gives a crap? That's really how I feel about that. I don't know. Like, he wasn't that good last year, but $1.7 million per year, dude.
Okay,
if you're the Steelers. You can do whatever you want still. Like, that doesn't bind you to anything. And honestly, I think Russ might have slipped up here a little bit. Like, I know that this $1.2 million is an FU to the Broncos because they're going to have to eat all of that money. And he basically just signed a vet minimum contract because he know that money is coming to him anyways. But like, $1.2 million is get benched during the season money and they don't care. Mm. Like, this doesn't even guarantee that you can start the whole season, let alone like be there after this year. So I don't know, maybe he went a little bit too far with the trolling and stuff, but just from like an investment standpoint, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I would sign Russ for $1.2 million a year. Why not? I would sign almost any quarterback 100%. For $1.2 million a year.
Right. No, it's true. No, I agree. So when I think it was Ian Rappaport tweeted out that Russ was signing with the Steelers, he had like the contract information in there and everything, blah blah blah. And the most shocking part of that tweet was learning that Russ was a 9-time Pro Bowler, because that was in the tweet. It was like 9-time Pro Bowler Russell Wilson. I was like, 9? He made 9 Pro Bowls? I know he had a run there, but 9's a lot.
All right. Well, last thing I have on Raheem Morris. I know there were Falcons fans who were like, he went 4-7 as the interim coach. You know that team was 0-5 when he took over, right? So I would say 4-7 from 0-5 is a pretty big, significant leap in performance. And they also almost beat the Chiefs and the Bucs that year, who ended up playing in the Super Bowl. So that year was not, he did not do as bad a job as people wanted to make his team when they start over. Again, they were 0-5 and they finished 4-7. So could have been a lot worse. Let's switch gears. Look forward a little bit for the last little bit that we're here. The NFL draft is coming up. We are, about 5-6 weeks away, 6 weeks away from
something like that.
The NFL draft. You have written something for Pro Football Focus where you're talking about some of your favorite fits for every team in the NFC and the AFC. And I just wanted to start with your AFC one for the Buffalo Bills, because I think the idea of Brian Thomas, the receiver from LSU, who smashed speed score stuff over the combine. He's a bigger receiver. I think he ran the 4.3s, like a 4.34 off the top of my head. They need someone to replace that field stretcher role now that Gabe Davis is with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Who knows if Stephon Diggs makes it through the season as a Buffalo Bill? It's touch and go with him every single day, it seems like. But Brian Thomas to the Bills, that's a fit that I really like. You want to go in more about how you made that selection?
Yeah, I mean, kind of exactly what you said. I mean, you're losing Gabe Davis, but when you look at the rest of the pieces on the roster, Stephon Diggs is pretty much your like do-it-all receiver. And you've got two really nice, versatile, I would say, slot options where I think Khalil Shakir is emerging as the smaller, shiftier slot guy. So, if you're going up against a team that typically likes to guard the slot with linebackers or with like bigger safeties, okay, maybe a shiftier, quicker separator can help you out there. Or if you're going up against a team that typically likes to guard the slot with smaller players, a smaller safety, maybe a smaller corner. They've got Dalton Kincaid, which they could put in that spot. But they're still, and I think we saw this last year, missing that go-to vertical element of the offense. And whatever you think of Brian Thomas Jr. and what he could become as a receiver at the NFL level, what we already know he does really well is stretch the field and win vertically. Some people go, okay, well, I've talked to people who have him as wide receiver 4 because they think he could be a more diverse route runner. They think he could do a lot more stuff when it comes to in-breaking routes and things over the middle and just being a more complete receiver. I've talked to people who have him more as like wide receiver 6, 7, 8 because they believe that he's just a vertical receiver. But no matter where you fall, it's perfect for the Bills because what he already is right now is exactly what you need and worth a back end of the first round pick for sure for where they're at. And then obviously if he blossoms into more than that, then just that's all the better. So that is one that kind of for the reasons that you said as well, like I would echo, it's a great fit for Buffalo, who did a lot more roster reconstruction than I thought they were going to do. So I wonder how that's all going to affect how competitive they're able to be. We knew that they were sort of towards the end of this winning window, but man, it felt like they got rid of a lot of people over the last couple of days. So obviously, we'll see how that affects how competitive they could be.
Another one, and this is going to lead to an existential question that I've been grappling with for the NFL draft. You have the Broncos with an early round fit being Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy, which I asked you, is he good? Is he good? I don't know.
I think yes. I think that JJ is good. I hated JJ's 2022 tape. I thought he was so far away from being an NFL quarterback. I thought he could not feel pressure. He did not have a good feel for the pocket. He was slow in his reads, didn't really recognize things the way that he needed to pre-snap, got fooled by a lot of different stuff post-snap as well. Like 2022 just was not good. 2023, he got better, in my opinion, at all of those things. Now, not like elite at it, but for him to progress in that manner as a whole, I think was really, really encouraging. I gave JJ McCarthy a late first, early second round grade, meaning like even with positional value taken into account, I would love to take this guy at the back end of the first round. I'd love to give him the Jordan Love situation. You're taking him in the 20s, back into the first round. You're sitting him behind somebody. He's able to learn. He takes over. And I think that he could look fantastic the way that Jordan Love looks. But we know that that's not just how the NFL operates. It's so very rare that you get a situation that's like that. So instead, now we've got to try to justify to ourselves, all right, well, are the Vikings going to trade up to 5 or 3 to draft him as like QB3 in this class? Because that's a lot. That's kind of a different conversation. You're basically starting him right away at that point. So that's kind of a tough thing to grapple with. But the reason why I like him as a fit for the Broncos, one, it's outside the top 10. I'm a little bit more comfortable with that. But 2, I do like the idea of him getting to work with Sean Payton. And people do talk about how JJ McCarthy can process things. And I did watch him get better again at recognizing things pre-snap to be more aggressive post-snap. And I just feel as though getting to work with Sean Payton in some sort of capacity, whether he's starting right away or not, is a pairing that I like for potential JJ destination. So that's why I ultimately went with a fit there.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced.
That's fair. That's fair.
Do something,
he's got like
JJ.
what? He's got 3 career games where he's had over 300 yards passing. Right? I think like it's not a lot, whatever the number it is. They just did not ask a lot of him. So drafting a quarterback that high, who you are probably going to immediately have to ask a lot from, is a dangerous game. So I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get anybody who's super hesitant about where he's being mocked right now.
If JJ gets drafted high, and we know the track record, guys outside of a few instances, guys are not sitting as rookies anymore.
No.
There's been a couple where they sit, but for the most part, you're playing. I almost feel like you would just have to throw out his entire rookie season. He's gonna be asked to do so much more than he was in college that I don't think it'll be fair to even like hardcore judge that. And it feels kind of lame to say that before he even takes a snap. Like that what you do this year, unless it's brilliant, doesn't really matter to me because you're playing such a different game than you were before. But I kind of struggle with the part like you didn't do all that much in college, but you weren't asked to. And if I was Michigan, I wouldn't ask them to do much either. I mean, we can run the ball 40 times a game for 250 yards and win a national championship that way. Ultimately, that's the most important thing if I'm Jim Harbaugh. But still, for draft evaluation purposes, I've been going back and forth, but I just want to see a little bit more. Before we get out of here, give me one of your favorite, just later round picks that you had as a part of your article. Maybe for a team that already has a quarterback.
Oh, actually, funny enough, I actually liked Leonard Taylor III, taking a chance on him, the Miami defensive tackle, to the Las Vegas Raiders. But I did not know that they were going to give a crap ton of money to Christian Davis or Christian Wilkins.
I think that's still a perfect situation for him because
that's true. That's true.
Okay, because I gotta say, when I started watching prospects, Leonard was projected to be like a first round pick, and I looked at the tape and I said, "Man, y'all gotta be kidding me! This is not this is not a first round player, not even close." And then and then it's funny because
which did you were you watching 2023 tape or did you watch the 2022 stuff?
I started with 2023. The Texas A&M game was the first game I watched, and I was like, "This guy's not draftable."
He's right. The 2023 stuff is not good. It's not.
Yeah. Well, then I was like, I had one of those moments where I was like, "Am I missing something?" Like, because usually when you're talking about like a first round defensive lineman, there's usually like at least stats. And I went back to like just his little stats page. I was like, oh no, like there's nothing here really. But in the late rounds, like a former 5-star, like you're at least dealing with like a body type that has been coveted for a while. You're dealing with athleticism that's been coveted for a while. And if he can get into a situation where he doesn't have to play right away or doesn't have to be relied on to be like the big dog up front like he was in Miami and that didn't really go well for him, I do still kind of like that fit. Because maybe he's a guy where if you put him next to Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins, he can kind of figure it out with some easier blocking assignments than he faced in college.
Yeah. I have another one. As you were talking, I was scrolling back the list and I was looking at mine. Kalen Carson, the cornerback from Wake Forest, I love the fit with him going to the Detroit Lions. Now, like the Lions traded for Carlton Davis, so they're obviously trying to make moves at the cornerback position anyways. If they end up going with offensive or defensive line in the first round or just don't get corner with their first couple of picks, I love the Carson fit to them specifically because when you listen to their coaches talk, they're like, oh, what do you look for in players? Physicality and tackling. If you can't do those things, you're not getting on the field. It's like, all right, noted. Carson loves to tackle. Like he's just super physical, loves to come downhill. I'm a little bit worried about the overall athleticism, but I loved him coming out of the summer when I watched his tape from last season because he was just not afraid to go up and hit you. And he loves to set the tone. He loves to be physical, loves to tackle. Like that to me is a great late round fit is Kalen Carson going to the Lions.
I have no idea who that is, so I'll get to it. Yeah, I'll get on that now.
Or trust me.
I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. You ask me in an hour, maybe I'll say I want to watch them. But at the end of a 1 hour podcast, I think I'll just take your word for it.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think that's enough. I think we can get out of here for the day. Trevor, let people know what you're working on, what you got coming up down the pipeline so they can know where to find you.
All right. We got the first version of the PFF NFL Draft Guide out right now. If you get a PFF subscription, you can download it. We got 150 players on it right now. It's got the scouting reports, the trait breakdowns, the advanced PFF data, player comps, all that good stuff, strength and weaknesses, everything that you love about a draft guide. So that is out right now. Like I said, 150 players. We're adding, I think, 50 more to it for the next version, and then trying to get to 250 plus. We'll see how many we get on there before draft weekend, but we'll be watching as many of these guys as possible. So again, if you got a PFF subscription, pff.com, that's where you can get it.
All right, cool. Can't wait to check that out. It's one of my favorite things that I used to cut corners every year, I gotta say. That's gonna do it for this episode of the Exempt List. Jason Fitz, Charles Robinson, and Jordy Epstein will be back on Thursday with an episode of Inside Coverage. We'll be back with another episode of the Exempt List next Tuesday, and every Tuesday with more draft content, more free agency stuff, more Falcons coping, more quarterback coping over the next couple of months. I'm Charles McDonald. You can find me on Twitter at @4verts. Trevor is on Twitter at Tampa Bay Trey. Producer Stone Rochelle behind the glass. He is on Twitter at SJ Rochelle, and we will see you next week.